This is profound. Honestly, this will change how you look at this whole, marketing piece generally, not just online, but how you approach marketing. I'll tell you a story. There's a friend of mine called Mick, and I've known him since I was 11 years old, and he's more like a brother. He's an ex-Royal Marine. He's a pretty tough guy, but I love him. He's one of the funniest men I've ever met in my life. And he told me he went on a sort of a stag night, a bucks night, bachelor party. They've got different names in different parts of the world. In Newcastle, in the northeast of England. And the lad who was getting married, they took him out. And they got him very, very drunk. And by about 1 o'clock in the morning, he was semi-conscious in a nightclub, and they kept gently pouring a few things down his neck. So eventually he ended up completely unconscious. And that was like, great. So they picked him up, and they put him in a taxi, and they drove him down to the coast. And they took him out of the taxi unconscious, and they carried him along this sort of fish quay. And there's all these fishing boats. And they started shouting to the various sort of skippers, do you need an extra crew member? And they were saying, come on, lads, don't be ridiculous. Go home, you've had too much to drink. Eventually, they found a skipper who had a sense of humor. He said, come on then, bring him on board. So they did. Anyway, the story's then picked up by the guy who was getting married. He said he woke up and everything was moving. And at first he thought it was him. And then he looked at his bedroom door and realized there was a steel hatch. And he thought, this is not good. So he opened the door, and all he can smell is diesel, and it's just boom, 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 this engine throbbing away. He gets up on deck, and he looks around, and there is nothing but sea. And he said he screamed like a 4-year-old who just cut themselves. He just, whoa! What the hell am I doing out here? He turns around, the skipper is killing himself laughing, and so the lads were putting the nets out on this fishing boat. And they said, what's wrong with you? And he said, I'm getting married. And he said, when? He said, on the weekend. And this is Thursday. And I said, oh, right, okay. He said, look, I've got to get back. I said, son, this is a North Sea trawler. He said, we're out for a month and a half. He said, a month and a half, my wife will kill me. And he said, I've got to ring her. He said, look, it's not a telephone box, son. It's a North Sea trawler. I tell you what we'll do. When we get to Greenland, because they do this triangular route, right? We'll get to Greenland, and you can ring her then. He said, when will you get to Greenland? He said, 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks? My life is going to end. Anyway, the whole day he's hungover. He's very sick, and they've got him downstairs peeling potatoes. Right? So he's gone backwards and forwards. And that night, it's about 8 o'clock at night. This is true story. The guys are all sat round, hard fishermen are all sat round. And he's sitting there, green, depressed. His wife-to-be is going to shoot him. And he just said, my life's going to end. And then the skipper just leans over. He said, don't worry, son. We're going back in tomorrow morning. We're only joking with you. And he said he leant over and he kissed this fisherman like you would kiss your mother. I am in Hong Kong, in a bar, talking to some random guy I have never met before in my life. And he is telling me a few jokes. I am telling him a few jokes, I know a couple. It may surprise you. And we're exchanging stories, and the next thing I know, he said, I'll tell you this story about a friend of mine, and it's to do with his bucks night. And he was really drunk, and they took him down to this, he told me my story. My story. And I went, that's my story. I nearly charged him. That's $50, please. You see, this is really powerful. That story has gone everywhere. And it came back to me because we are programmed from the day we are born to relate to each other with stories. They are extraordinarily powerful. If I asked you what your worst nightmare was, what would you do? Tell me a story, wouldn't you? I woke up and there was this shark and it was biting my leg and I had to punch it on the nose. It's a story. Okay? So stories are really powerful. And the reason why internet marketers like myself or like Wendy are really, really sort of fascinated by stories is simply because, and this is the research that I've done, your customers, on average, get hit by about 3,000 advertising messages a day. A day. So you've got to grab their attention. And stories, because they're DNA'd into us, are amazing ways of grabbing their attention. And the technology now allows us to do that. So, you know how I mentioned MasterChef? They tell a story. My name is John, and I was down on my luck, and then I've just gone into this competition, and I happen to be using this particular brand of chicken stock. And then what I've done is I've gone through, see what I mean? The products are now inlaid into the story. That's why this show is so successful.